I'm Tim Henson, and I'm here today to answer your questions from Twitter. This is Guitar Support. Queen Tay asks, why are bar chords so hard? For a lot of beginners, bar chords are difficult because you have to kind of place one finger across the entire fretboard. For some, like, that's just a weird movement. And really, like, you're kind of hitting it on the side of your finger versus like the pad. So if you can hit and play all of those notes cleanly, then you'll be able to get a nice bar chord. Premier Guitar asks, what's a riff that sounds easy but is actually hard to play? John Mayer's Neon. Doesn't sound that difficult. And then you watch him play it, he's just got his thumb stretched all the way up here, and it's incredible. So he frets the root of the chords with his thumb and then plays like just regular chords that you would normally do, like all the way up there. So it's just truly a difficult thing to play, especially if you do not have large hands. From Pedro C. Gallardo, what the are boomer bends? Boomer bends is a term coined by Rick Beato and I. It describes a very specific guitar bending lick commonly used in music from the 60s and 70s, the age of the baby boomer. The more twang you give it, and the more like old guy you make it sound, the more boomery it is, I suppose. But we didn't make that term in an offensive way. It was more so just like, it starts with a B, and bend starts with a B. So it became a catchy phrase in that way. And I think a lot of baby boomers got upset at that term, but that's all right because, you know, it's just a way to describe a sound. Playguitar_bass asks, what makes a great guitar solo? For me, how memorable the solo is, and if you can sing the solo. For example, I think the guitar solo from Bohemian Rhapsody is one of the best guitar solos of all time. If you can sing with it, it's more memorable than just a bunch of notes scattered. Shone Baby asks, can someone send me a good guitar lesson vid on finger tapping? And we can go over finger tapping right now. It's one of the easier, flashier techniques, which is fun because it doesn't take a lot of effort, starting on the 5th fret and the 8th fret of the B string, and then 12 with your right hand. And the way that you fret these notes, you need to be in the middle of the fret in order to get a clean note. Once you can do that, then you just speed it up. So just start with that sequence. But yeah, that's tapping. Sage of Quay asks, upgrade versus upscale. Is upgrading a cheap guitar worth it, or are expensive guitars just a scam? I personally do not think that expensive guitars are a scam. I think after a certain price point, that's about as good as the guitar is going to get. You can find really, really great guitars with what I call mojo. Those instruments just have a great feeling. You can find those for under $500. $1,000 to $1,500 mark is where you're going to have like a fairly like intermediate, it's gonna be a good guitar. And then after $2,000 and up is kind of where you're gonna find like really well-crafted guitars, and they're intonated better. So for example, intonation is hitting the harmonic of the 12th fret and then hitting the 12th fret. And how well those match together is how well intonated that guitar is. For example, this guitar, it's pretty well intonated. If we were to pick up a cheaper guitar and see how well this one is intonated, you can tell that it's not the best intonated, but it's not terrible. If you're going to be performing in front of a crowd and you want a stable workhorse, probably want to spend a little bit more on your guitar. Blues Web Radio asks, what does the tone knob actually do? The tone knob is a high cut filter, so when you turn it down, it's going to cut a lot of the high frequencies. So for example, I'm going to play a riff with the tone knob all the way up. Tone knob all the way down. So you can kind of hear the difference between those. When I bring it all the way up, you get the full range of frequencies. FDHLIHN asks, how the f are you sweep picking? My left hand ain't that fast. So the first thing that you're gonna wanna do when sweep picking is practice very, very slow. Both hands need to be perfectly in sync. To go into that motion, you're gonna wanna think of the pick falling in a sweeping motion and falling back up in a sweeping motion. So once you've practiced that enough, you can bring that up to speed and do. And that's sweep picking. Simon V Radio DJ asks, right, so can the guitar players out there explain different tunings for guitars? I can never seem to get my head around it all. So there's probably a million different tunings out there. The most common one that you're going to see is E standard, and that is just E-A-D-G-B-E. That's a great one to start with because your scales are going to be linear. The next most common one is probably going to be E flat standard. And that one you'll see a lot in older rock music. Tune the guitar down just by one half step so that the singer wouldn't have to belt as hard. It just gives it a little bit of a darker sound when it's down tuned. The next most common one is drop D, or any dropped tuning where your low string is going to go down a whole step. Nice thing about that is that you're able to do power chords, which is the root, the fifth, and the octave. You'll be able to play those with just one finger. And then you'll find open tunings, which are commonly used in like math rock and emo music. You can kind of play easy chord shapes, but then have really complex sounding chords. Feller NJ asks, you'll like pinch harmonics. I f***ing love pinch harmonics. They're awesome. If you want to learn how to do a pinch harmonic, first up, you're gonna switch your pickup selection all the way to the bridge pickup. And with your right hand, you basically take the pick and you're going to hit the string twice. Once with the pick, once with your thumb for one swift action. So yeah, pinch harmonic. Nathan Relax says, I have no idea what makes a good guitar tone and it annoys me. It has everything to do with taste and using your ears. Because I remember when I was 10 years old, I could not hear what the bass guitar was doing. I just couldn't distinguish it between the guitar and the bass guitar. And then, like, just a year later, I was like, okay, I can clearly hear that now, and I don't know what was wrong with me. Now I've been on this earth long enough to understand what a good mix is and why it's a good mix. Listening to a lot of music and comparing mixes and comparing guitar tones will help you on your journey to crafting a good guitar tone. Pneumonia27 asks, do I need to know music theory in order to write songs? I think a lot of the best songwriters of all time probably didn't know any music theory. I myself do not know a good amount of music theory, and if you have any melody in your head and you write it down, you're writing music right there. So no, you do not need to know music theory at all to write songs. Okay, so stack music. What should I learn after learning open and bar chord shapes if I want to learn fingerstyle guitar? If it were me, I would learn right hand techniques. Number one, muting, just with your right hand. And then number two, plucking with all of the fingers. With fingerstyle versus a pick, you can use all of them, so. Thumping is a good technique which you can bring into fingerstyle. But yeah, just using your right hand techniques. Our Diets 55 asks, is it more important to learn how to read music or to practice learning by ear? I guess it really depends on what your goals in music is going to be. If you want to play in an orchestra, probably need to learn how to read music. If you want to play in a band, it's probably good to practice learning by ear. I personally think that learning by ear is a bit more important, as you know, if you're thrown into a performance with other musicians and there is no sheet music, playing by ear, you be doing it no problem. Narati asks, what are common mistakes for people learning to play guitar, aka beginner mistakes? People try to run before they can walk. Let's say that you have a favorite song and it's got like a cool guitar solo or something in it. So you learn it and you kind of skip out on a lot of basic fundamentals of technique and timing and understanding how your hands can affect the tone of the instrument. I was a runner before I was a walker. That helped push me to want to clean up my run by going back and learning to walk correctly. So there's no right or wrong way for anyone to learn how to play guitar, but that is definitely a mistake that people like to make. Prayers for Rain asks, what's a good song on guitar to practice power chords that's fairly easy? I'm trying to learn again. Iron Man by Black Sabbath, classic song, one of the first I ever learned, and it's got power chords. So by definition, the power chord is gonna have your root, your fifth, and an octave. In this case, we're just going to take out the octave and just do the root and the fifth, and we're going to start on the 7th fret of the E and the 9th fret of the A. And it sounds great. It's such a powerful chord, the root and the fifth. The melody is going to be the same chord shape the entire time. Kids Not Saints asks, how the f did Tim Henson write Playing God? Like, can he break it down? I started that with an omnichord, an electric instrument originating from Japan in the 80s. I kind of picked a chord sequence from the omnichord that sounded minor and very classical to me. So those were the chords. After then, I kind of just arpeggiated the chords in different rhythmic sequences. An arpeggio is a broken up chord. First chord with a quarter note and then arpeggiating with eighth notes. And then the second chord, arpeggiating with syncopation. Third chord, hitting quarter note and then arpeggiating with eighth notes. And then other rhythmic variation. By the time we get back to this chord, I'm hitting a melody of ba-na-na-na-na-na with harmonics. So, and then you've got, so in full that looks like